one ingredient. So no other major brand comes closer to this than this. Now, what are you waiting for? Try it. Oh yes, there is one other thing. Pure Premium now comes in a slightly larger package. 96 ounces, to be exact.
Oh my
Oh
god.
my
Oh, start.
Vitamin C. This organic molecule is essential to our diet as it helps with the formation of blood vessels, cartilage, and a lot of misconception that it cures a common cold. Despite this, many studies have shown that its effects on the common cold had a very inconsistent impact on both the duration and severity of symptoms. So, no, you won't exactly become a Giga Chad if you take vitamin C supplements. It's also found in many of the monumental amounts of westernized breakfast foods we eat, such as your typical OJ and Fruit Loops. But you're more often than not going to find this in virtually any acidic fruit to ever exist, ranging from things like pineapples, lemons, to even potatoes. Yes, I know potatoes are not fruit. However, one question my lab partners and I had was just how much vitamin C is found in something sweet like orange juice, as opposed to something with an even higher sugar content like Orange Crush or Sunny D. Now, of course, we could have just looked at the food labels of all these products, but I actually wanted to experiment and actually see how you would be able to find out this phenomenon. And it just so happens to be that one of the activities listed in the SDS was testing for vitamin C compounds. We will test through a variety of different fruit juices and the diabetic inducing compounds I mentioned earlier. Except, not really, because Orange Crush quite literally says on the label that there's an insignificant amount of vitamin C. So, we opt for Sunny D. Believe it or not, there is some vitamin C hiding in there. Somewhere.
The purpose of this experiment is to test the vitamin C content in the different juices. This experiment demonstrates the qualitative and quantitative test for this vitamin. The materials we used in our activity were distilled water, a burette, a graduated cylinder, starch acetic acid, 2 small beakers, iodine solution, and a variety of juices such as orange juice, apple juice, lemon juice, pineapple juice, Sunny D, and our controlled variable, which was 500 milligrams of vitamin C that was crushed up and mixed with 100 milliliters of water.
Before we begin, we'd ought to make our claim that going into the experiment, our hypothesis was that the Sunny D would have the least amount of vitamin C. It is of course the unhealthiest of our selected juices, and therefore we believed it would have less vitamins and other substances. On the other hand, we believe that more citrusy drinks, especially the orange juice, would have the most vitamin C content within it. When we think of vitamin C, we typically think of citrus fruits, so therefore we assume that the orange juice will be the highest. It should also be noted that this is obviously presuming that we have not seen the nutrition labels. Another thing is that we should always take precautions before beginning any experiment, even if it's just putting salt in water. But why?
For this experiment, we had to take many safety precautions as we were dealing with some chemicals. We put on our handy-dandy rubber gloves and super swag aprons, and we were ready to get to work. And for Kenneth and Javier, they were required to wear their safety goggles at all times. This protective gear was essential, especially because we were working with iodine solution, which would have stained our skin and clothes upon contact. And even though our solution was pretty diluted, it could still be very harmful. Probably even kill us too. Just kidding. Lol. We also made sure to rinse and clean each beaker and the rest of the containers after each use, especially if we were adding a new substance into the same container. This prevented cross-contamination and ensured that we were getting the correct results. We also made a separate waste bin for all the leftover product post-titration instead of dumping it all down the drain. Because there were chemicals, it would have been unsafe to dump it anywhere else. To be honest, we don't even know exactly where this beaker of forbidden juice went. A little birdie told us that Mr. Duffy and Mr. Nicolson keep it on their nightstand beside their bunk bed and take ritualistic sips every night before going to sleep. But that just might be a rumor.
To set up the experiment, we filled a burette with a diluted iodine solution, which consisted of 10 milliliters of iodine mixed with 100 milliliters of water. This simply changes the concentration from a molarity of 0.05 moles per liter to only 0.005 moles per liter. Next, we took another beaker and this time added 25 milliliters of distilled water, 10 milliliters of the starch acetic acid solution, and another 10 milliliters of one of our juice samples. We then mix it up a bit and then we're ready to start tritating. But before we start adding the iodine solution to our sample, we made sure to note the initial volume in the burette. This would be essential to our calculations at the end.
Slowly, we began adding our iodine into our juice mixture. We kept swishing the juice around inside so we could allow the reaction to take place properly. Once we felt like we were reaching our endpoint, we began to slow the porridge and ended up going drop by drop so we could not end up going past the endpoint. Once our mixture became a consistent indigo color for more than 20 seconds, our titration was complete. We made sure to record the final volume of the burette so that we could complete the calculations. We rinsed out our beakers so that we could reuse them and refill the burette with iodine solution if it needed it. We repeated this process for each juice sample.
Wait. Hold on a minute. Okay, and as Kenneth is about to tell you, this clip is actually fake. It's not real.
It is important to note that in the first few experiments we did, we were using a starch solution that did not work properly, therefore gave us weird results. Thanks to the help of Mr. Nicolson, we realized our misfortune and had to redo all of the titration using a new DIY acetic acid solution.
You put so much iodine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my god, man.
Like, it should be purple, that's what...
Then let's put purple dye.
When it is in the presence of starch.
As well, that is right there.
Wait, do you think it means when we touch it, it turns purple?
Oxide. Okay. I have no idea if this is going to work, but it's based on like a hunch.
However, out of all things that could possibly happen, this caused it.
Whatever you did with that, step in the bottle, do with that.
Yeah.
See if it changes anything.
So this is soluble starch water.
DIY.
DIY starch. Yes.
Breaking the rules.
We made our own starch because it seems like the old starch did not seem to work. We are very fortunate to have a super intelligent teacher such as him. We still don't know why the original starch acetic acid did not do its job correctly, but we suspect it was too old or something. But it is what it is.
Now this chart is what we used for our calculations. To measure the amount of iodine used, we subtracted the initial amount from the final amount. To find out how much vitamin C was in our 10 milliliter sample, we had to multiply each milliliter of iodine by 0.88, because each milliliter of iodine reacts with 0.88 milligrams of vitamin C. Finally, we multiplied this number by 10 because the average glass of juice is approximately 100 milliliters, and 10 milliliters times 10 equals 100 milliliters. This final number represents the average amount of vitamin C in each cup of juice.
After that humiliating defeat in our study, what exactly did we learn in the background as well? So in this lab, we used a lot of health science and chemistry knowledge to find our data. Our goal was to find the content of vitamin C, also formerly known as L-ascorbic acid as I brought up earlier, which is an organic compound with a chemical structure of 6 carbons, 8 hydrogen, and 6 oxygen molecules. To find the amount of this vitamin, we needed to use a titration procedure, in which we used the starch solution and the iodine solution to create a reaction with the juice to help us determine the unknown amount of vitamin C within it. As we discovered with previous labs throughout the year, the iodine solution turns into a dark indigo color in the presence of starch. The indigo color indicates the endpoint in our titration, or the point in which the reaction reaches the equilibrium, and once it reaches this point, we are able to find out the unknown value.
Vitamin C is a very important component of a good and healthy diet. The importance of this vitamin became apparent when deficiency diseases such as scurvy became very common. Scurvy was a very prominent disease in all places all over the world. It was a disease in which those who were vitamin C deficient experienced symptoms such as compromised immune systems, extreme fatigue, poor gum health and loss of teeth or hair, spontaneous bleeding, and blue and red dots forming underneath the skin. It was a very serious disease that killed many people, especially those who traveled a lot. Many of the men who were some of the first European settlers in Canada perished overseas as a result of scurvy. Once they discovered that vitamin C was the cause and cure for this disease, it became heavily incorporated into everybody's diets, especially these sailors.
Humans are unable to create vitamin C for ourselves, therefore they are essential to our diet. Vitamin C acts as a coenzyme and is also a very strong antioxidant. Additionally, vitamin C helps synthesize hormones like dopamine, noradrenaline, and adrenaline, as well as many other positive things for our bodies. In many labs around the world, they are also testing the effects of vitamin C as a cure for cancer or any other such diseases.
Because vitamin C is so helpful to us and so essential in our diets, it is recommended that we consume quite a bit of it daily. The recommended amount consumed per day is about 500 milligrams. Any amount significantly smaller than that will put you at a very high risk of becoming deficient or even developing scurvy. Fruits and vegetables, especially citrus fruits and tomatoes, are very good sources of vitamin C, and any of the juices that we used in our tests would be very good sources of it too. You could also consume some vitamin C supplements or tablets, similar to the one we used as our control variable in our experiment, as a quick and easy substitute to ensure that you are getting a sufficient amount of vitamin C intake. On the flip side, having an excessive vitamin C intake can be harmful as well. It has a low level of toxicity, so it is not too damaging, but too much vitamin C can cause many gastrointestinal disturbances and discomforts, such as diarrhea, nausea, and abdominal pain. Yikes!
So going back to our hypothesis, we were somewhat accurate. The sweetest, most processed, and unnatural drink in our collection, aka the Sunny D, was the lowest in vitamin C content, just as we had predicted. However, we were wrong about the juice that would have the most. Originally, we predicted that orange juice or another citrusy juice would have the highest. However, it was not the case. Apple juice surprisingly took the lead, which none of us would have expected. It was really crazy, as you can hear through my voice while I'm recording.
We also learned a lot about the health benefits of vitamin C and what it means to be a vitamin C fanboy. We wouldn't be anywhere in this world without our lovely little vitamin. Thank you. But man, that's starch.
Now, despite our partially incorrect hypothesis and our many failed experiments, we still had a lot of fun. We learned a bunch of new things and we had a great time working together. And even if we did this project completely wrong, it's not about the grade. It's about the friends we made along the way. And that's really all science is truly about. Friendship. We hope you too learned something today, and we appreciate your dedication to watching this far. Peace to the world. Thank you. The end.